So why should you upgrade your lens if you're making videos like this? Because it can change the quality from this to this. And in this video, we're going to have a look at quite what those differences are, why you should be upgrading, really kind of listing through 3 main benefits of why you would want to go for a prime lens. And what even is a prime lens? Let's jump in. Now, I totally get that if you're not really into photography, you've just been told that to do video like this, you need to go and get a camera like this off Amazon. Then you're probably thinking, why do I need to change the lenses around? And the lens you've got has got a zoom that goes in and out. And I'm talking to you about getting a lens that is fixed and won't zoom in and out. So surely that's a backward step, right? Well, no, absolutely not. I was a professional photographer for around 17 years, and believe me, the secret sauce for a professional photographer is the lens choice. It's way more important for me to invest money in lenses than it ever was in the camera bodies. There's only so much difference a camera can do, more megapixels, things like that. But actually, when I get to lenses, it's about the quality of the glass. You can kind of see what I'm meaning just in the construction of these. This, for instance, is probably the kit lens that came with your Sony camera. And notice just that very small amount of glass and light that's traveling through there. If I put alongside it this Viltrox 24mm lens, you can see that there's a lot more glass in there. You can see a lot more through it. You get the idea. And keep in mind as well that when I buy lenses like this to attach to it, if the camera gets upgraded in a few years' time, I've got a set of lenses that will stay with me. And as I say, over those 17 years, I upgraded some of the lenses. Some of them I bought right at the start there, and they've stayed with me right the way through. I've looked after them. And although my cameras have changed every few years, those lenses have completely stood the test of time. Good quality lenses can be a really good investment for you. But I have to say, you don't need to spend silly money on it. If you went on Amazon or another store and started looking around at different prime lenses, you can spend thousands on lenses. And if you were a portrait photographer or wedding photographer, then yeah, it absolutely would be worth you investing in good glass. But for what we're doing here, we don't need to go into those expensive lenses. We've actually found some third-party lenses from companies like Viltrox and Sigma that give us some amazing options. We've got a couple of comparison videos actually, the 16 and 30mm Sigma one. You can check that out in the video up here. And then we've also introduced this Viltrox 24mm. Again, you can check out the video up there, or they'll be down in the description. What are we talking about with prime lenses? The main thing to note with them is that unlike something like this Sony lens that will actually zoom in and out, a prime lens is fixed. So I buy a lens that is a certain distance. Now on your kit lens that came with your camera, you will have an option to adjust the zoom. It may well be like on this Sony one that it's a powered one that you twist the side of it, or it may be just a ring on there that you adjust and it will give you a distance, maybe from 18 to 55 or something like that. And that is actually setting the focal distance from the camera to you. Out of interest, have a look on it now if you've got one. I'm curious to know what distance you're working at. I'm reckoning you're probably somewhere between 20 and 30mm, assuming you're on something like this Sony or Canon camera. So the numbers that you see on those prime lenses will determine how wide an angle, how zoomed in an image you're going to get. So you can see here, this is a Sigma 16mm lens that is shooting much wider. You're getting a lot more view in this. It is actually giving me some distortion at the edges. If I flicked across to the other extreme, we've got a 50mm here, way too close for what we're doing on this kind of thing. And then in between it, there's a 30mm, which is what I'm recording on right now, or this 24mm that just gives me a little bit more space. So you choose your lens based on the crop that you want. How close do you want the camera to be? How wide do you want it to be? I choose this very tight crop. Big fan of it, recommend you do it. So I would suggest you match up first of all and go, all right, well, let's just see on the lens that I've got, what distance do I like? What crop do I like? And then come back to me, tell me in the comments if you like, but I reckon you'll be either at that 16, 24, 30mm will work really well for this type of work. Why would we lock that down? Why would we go for a fixed lens that doesn't give us the same flexibility? Well, partly, I don't need to change this around. If I'm going to be consistent with my videos, I'm not going to be zooming in and out. I can do that in editing if I need to come in for any reason, but this prime lens gives me so much more. I said there were 3 main points, and the first of those is quality. If I'd still got those old $2,000 lenses that I used to have for my Canon setup, I would show you just a huge bit of glass in the back of it. The more you spend, the more glass you get, and you're able to get a much better quality through a prime lens that isn't needing to have a series of lenses inside it to be able to do the clever things it does to zoom. Any professional portrait photographer will be working on prime lenses because you cannot match the quality of a prime lens with a zoom lens. So number 1, quality. And actually the ones that we're talking about aren't silly money. We're talking between £200 and £400 for a lens. That is going to last you a long time. So I think based on the quality alone, this is worth considering as an investment. Now, the second feature is this nice blurry background that we get. I have people say to me, you almost look 3D. It's like you're standing out from the photo there. And is that real or is it a green screen behind you? The technical term is bokeh, but you'll hear me more often just calling it a blurred background because that's what we're talking about. Now, we're going to compare this over, and if I flick this back now to the kit lens at this same distance, notice what happens to the background. That's probably 5 foot behind me. If it's closer in, you're really not going to notice any separation between you and that back wall. And then we start to get to what is an effect that you'd get out of a phone or a webcam, that it just looks like you're there in front of this background rather than separating you from it. This is why when people say, I love the quality and the look of that image, one of the first things I'm saying is you got to get that prime lens and take that aperture wide open to at least 2.8. This lens won't go any wider than f5 at this 30mm distance. Now that leads us on to the third benefit of using a prime lens, and that is the amount of light that it lets in. When I talked there about the aperture and opening that gap up, letting more light through to the sensor, it means that we can turn down the ISO. The ISO is like a brightness level, if you like, inside your camera. It's like on your monitor, how you can turn the brightness up and down. In simple terms, that's what ISO is doing. Someone's going to shoot me down in the comments with some technical answers that you need to understand. You just need to know that it's like a brightness control. So for me, stuck at f5, I've really had to lift the ISO, the brightness inside the camera. Or the alternative would be, I've got to turn the lights up in front of me brighter, and that's typically where you might get stuck. You're on this kit lens, you're thinking, I can't get the aperture any wider, I'd better turn my lights up. And you probably do that first before even thinking about ISO inside the camera, and so now you've got spotlights or soft boxes in front of you, and it's giving you a headache when you're recording because they're too bright. The other thing with ISO is the higher that number gets, the lower the quality, the more grainy the image. Now, we're not getting into those numbers particularly, but there's definitely a drop in quality. Again, as a professional photographer, one of my priorities was always to keep that ISO as low as possible. So if I were to keep the settings as I've got them now with this kit lens, if I pop that 30mm prime lens back on that's going to go to 1.8, notice how much extra light this is going to let in. Are you ready? Whoa, grab the sunglasses. Let's dial this back down again. We can take this ISO right down now. We're on an ISO of 125 now, and trust me, this is about as sharp and as clean as we can get this image to come through. So there you go, the quality, that blurred background, and letting in more light are 3 main reasons why you would go for a prime lens. So if you're not ready to upgrade, not a problem. Maybe save or bookmark this video and come back to it at another time. If you think, yeah, I get that, I'm ready to invest £200 to £400 on a prime lens, the first thing I would recommend you do is just see what zoom you're at the minute. If you're happy with the crop that you've got, have a look on your kit lens and see what the setting is to, because that will indicate whether you want to be looking at the 16, 24 or 30mm lens. If you're not sure how to do this, there's a link below to our Facebook community group. By all means, come over there, post a question in, post some photos in of the equipment you've got. We'll show you how to work out what that number is. I can't really do it in the comments here in YouTube, unfortunately. And then when you've decided, okay, I'm at about 22mm or something like that, then please go and have a look. We've started a playlist comparing that 16 and 13mm Sigma, the Viltrox 24, and no doubt we'll have other lenses coming in there as well. I reckon that's a great place to start. If you'd like to know more about the exact equipment that we're using right now in our studio, then we've got a gear guide that's available in the description below for you to download. I think that covers everything, doesn't it? Thanks so much for being here. I look forward to seeing you in another video.